It's time for MacBreak Weekly. We are minutes away from Apple's quarterly earnings report. Rene, Richie, Andy Iannacco, and Alex Lindsay and I will all talk about what to look for, what to expect. Is it going to be a good quarter? Is it going to be a bad quarter? And how goes the race to $1 trillion? Up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 621, recorded Tuesday, July 31st, 2018. Emotional Cupcakes. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Masterclass, online classes taught by the world's greatest minds. For a limited time, get a free 7-day trial at masterclass.com/MacBreak. And by LastPass, secure every password-protected entry point to your business. Join over 33,000 businesses and start managing and securing your company's passwords today. Learn more at lastpass.com/twit. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple. Of course, as happens every 3 months, the latest news from Apple happens right after the show is over. Rene, Richie from imore.com, you'll be doing your usual sitting in on the analyst call, I presume?
Yeah, I mean, we'll hear what sold more than they expected, what sold less than they expected, and the collective panic no matter what happens.
Also here, Andy Iannacco from Iannacco.com. Hello, Andrew.
Hello.
You'll be studiously avoiding. You'll probably be out in the beautiful weather, strolling the Boston Common, forgetting life.
I will be looking through a window as I ponder how many thousands of words I need to complete by the end of the week.
And
thanks,
Alex Lindsay, who is still using his 2015 MacBook Pro. You just
waiting for that MagSafe.
MagSafe.
Waiting for my MagSafe.
You know, I mentioned last week I got the one from Line Co. They make docks and stuff, and they just sent it to me, which was nice. And it works great, and it all the Type-C stuff works. The video, right. Everything works through it. And so I leave it plugged into my machine.
My whole thing right now is that I don't need my more portable machine to be that powerful. So I don't do as much production on the road as I used to. So now at home I have an iMac that's pretty fast, and I just don't need it.
Yeah.
So I haven't had a need to update it.
Yeah. I should lend you this one.
Oh, no, I don't want to know.
See if you like it.
I don't want to know.
Be velocitized.
Yeah.
Oh, my, this thing is not. I'll go back to mine. But right now, it's fine.
All right.
For what I do. I'm actually trying to move more and more away from my laptop. So now I'm spending
all
more.
iPad?
I try to take, well, I'm not all iPad, but I am definitely taking my iPad out more and more often. And like when I come home from work, especially when I'm in DC, which I'm most of the time, when I go back, I just take my iPad, and then I'm just trying to see where the drop-off is. You find little things like you can't select multiple things in Keynote.
I'm glad that you're doing this so you can report back to us so I don't have to.
No, it's just been forcing myself to do it. And, there's definitely things that I go, okay, well, I really need my laptop for that. But, there's more and more things that are iPadable that I thought, wouldn't be.
You can't do multiple selections on iPad. On the iPad with Keynote. Have you tried the
that is the thing that drives me. That's what takes me back. Like I can't finish a Keynote on the iPad because I can't select multiple objects.
Like what if you try the gesture where you're holding down one and adding to the selection with another finger?
Oh, I haven't tried that. Oh, see, there we go.
Yeah, you should be able to tap stuff into the stack.
Oh,
okay. Because I tried to I tried to select it and I did a lot of different ways, and I didn't Google it, so I didn't look at it.
Yeah, the flip side of wanting to have as few visible controls in the interface as possible is that sometimes for the last 20% of a app's features on Apple's like iPad apps, you really do have to go download the PDF that shows you how to do absolutely everything.
Right.
There a number of times I was about to say, "Oh, isn't it terrible that Sheets does not do?" Oh, right. Wait a minute. Yes, I found in section 12 it does say, "Okay, I'm sorry."
And I think I'm probably ready to like watch all the movies and read the manual again, which I haven't read since it first came out, because. Especially for the iPad, because that I'm like, Apple's so committed to this. I'm sure it probably does it, but I can't quite figure this out. And I have to say that it is once you get good at Pages and Keynote, especially on the iPad, it's life-changing for someone who does a lot of Pages documents. You write all your text, and then you're just drawing in little sketches of where you want pictures for, into Pages, and it just makes it so much faster to kind of move through the creative process into a finished product compared to what I used to do on a laptop.
So let's see if we can do this. I've added a turkey and a triangle to this. So you're saying I should be able, Andrew, look at that. Drag the turkey into the...
I know, but can you just select them all and move them is the question.
Like if I, move them all in concert.
Together, yeah.
Hold one down, then tap the other ones to add them to the
there you
stack.
go. It's a little hard to get registration out of it, but
now I'm moving them all.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, that was
doing it with my middle finger, which is not ideal, but okay. There we go. Look at that. Yeah.
Considering the subject.
There we go. Okay.
Considering the subject.
I stand corrected.
All right.
That's great.
Yes.
Solved one.
And actually, the other yes is I just before the show began installed iOS 12 public beta 4, and I wasn't sure if it would be done, but it has finished. So the developer of beta 5 came out today, and as you mentioned, Rene, one behind for the public beta. So we're up to beta 4 now on iOS, and it sounds to me, and by the way, my phone is still installing. It's only about a 400 megabyte install. It's not huge. Sounds to me though, if we're at public developer beta 5, we're pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that you're one behind; it's that they don't give you the first one because it's not really fit for civilians.
Oh, so we're caught up then?
Yeah, it's the same build. It's just the public number is one behind because you don't get the nasty one at WWDC.
That seems fair. So it seems to me that you're not going to. How many betas do you do before you gold master it?
Once in a while, they do a spurt of them, but most of the time recently, they've just stopped 3 weeks, a month out, and there's been nothing. That's usually a good precursor that they're battening down all the hatches before.
So
just about everything's working. I mean, I don't run into that many things that crash. Occasionally, when you're jumping in photos, you jump from one section to another, it dumps out, and Marketplace doesn't work.
I kind of forgot that I've on the beta. Because I've been using it on my main phone and iPad.
Nope. I think the last update really fixed the issue with the maps, which was that it really didn't know where you were. I mean, it was constantly guessing
the
miles.
GPS issue?
The GPS issue. It was like miles apart from where it was supposed to be.
See, I didn't notice that, and I'm playing Pokemon Go all the time.
Well, I didn't have that one, but I had the one where it didn't know any of your contacts. They just gave you numbers and email addresses for everyone for 2 weeks. Seems like every year we get that one for one of the versions.
That wouldn't be good, but no, my contacts are okay. I feel like maybe I just lucked out, but I feel like it's pretty solid right now, almost ready for delivery to the masses.
Yep.
All right, so quarterly results. Oh, first of all, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Can't leave that in the lurch. Now, Alex got cupcakes. I don't have really anything to offer you, so.
Oh, it's okay. I've got all your emotional and mental cupcakes, Leo.
Exactly. I'm sending you emotional cupcakes.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Show title.
And I did send you a Pokemon Go gift.
You did, and I traded it with someone who got a gift from Bulgaria, so we was like a maximum distance. It was amazing.
Wow. Yeah. And what do you get extra if you do that?
Well, so you have to get right down a rabbit hole again. If you get to 1 million miles, you get a pilot medal.
Oh, nice.
So we got like 20,000 or 10,000.
And you get miles for trading with somebody distant. You get all of those miles. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
It's fun. It's okay. In this case, regifting is okay. Happy birthday, Rene.
Thank you so much.
You'll be spending your birthday on the phone with Luca Maestri, so that's good.
Some of my closest friends, Tim Cook. I'm blanking on the woman's name who gives the investor guidance about forward-looking statements, but her too. Luca.
I've learned something about the market. The stock market is not our beat, and it often doesn't really have any relationship to the actual world. But of course, when you do quarterly earnings, that's for the benefit of investors in the stock market. And I've learned something this week from Ben Thompson at Stratechery, who came off his vacation to write about Facebook, because of course Facebook increased its earnings by like 42%, and the market took $150 billion off of its value.
Kicked them, knocked them down, then kept kicking them while they're down, because there's no better time to kick a company.
But he points out, and I think I really trust Ben's judgment on this one. He points out that really what it is the market isn't looking at past performance, which is what a quarterly report is how we did last quarter, but at the guidance for future performance. And it took a hit because the guidance was, we're not going to grow as fast. We're running out of people. What is Apple's guidance going to be, and how will that affect the stock market, you think, later today?
I mean, I'm terrible at judging what they're going to pick on guidance, because for Apple, it can be anything from currency headwinds, which is what they like to call them, to component costs. Sometimes RAM is exorbitantly expensive and it affects them. And then, of course, we're going into the holidays. So right now there's usually a lull because people stop buying iPhones not everybody, but people who watch shows like this stop buying iPhones between, the months of June and September. So I think next quarter is a relatively slow one for Apple, Q4 traditionally. And then you start ramping into the holidays again. So I think people know that, though. I think Apple guiding low for the in-between quarter is not uncommon.
That's already in the price. Everybody knows that. Yeah,
that's all priced in. So just because there's anything unusual, like with Facebook, it wasn't just that because Apple's hitting the law of large numbers too. But with Facebook also, they're expending a lot more money on things like European privacy policies and on tightening security and on hiring people to do a lot of the sorting and filtering work. And that's all massive expenditure without a commensurate income to go. And that's like against what they're earning. And I think that is also what bothered the stock market a little bit.
Yeah. He said he became aware of it because of Apple, and Apple's great results not affecting the market at first. It has, though, since then.
That's potential for earning, right? It was Apple was making money. Amazon hasn't yet made money, but they will one day. And boy, do I want to be there when Amazon starts making money.
You're buying the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes complete sense to me.
And Amazon is doing what a lot of investors in some ways want to see them do, which is that they're spending all that money back on growth, and they're looking at 20 or 30 or 40 years of growth. As soon as they get to wherever they want to get to, if they ever do, they just take the foot off the gas and start collecting cash.
And as I said, we don't cover the stock market, but when you read whatever happens this afternoon, and the market's so jittery, I wouldn't be surprised if Apple's price went down based on something, Lucas says, well, we don't anticipate great growth in Q4.
Well, you also sell on good news. You buy on bad news. It's not intuitive at all.
That's right. It isn't really a comment on the future of the company or its and this is what Ben points out. He says Facebook is in great shape financially. It's doing great. It's going to be a great business for years to come. And I think there's no question in my mind Apple is. So whatever the market does this afternoon isn't.
It's an acceleration game. It's like you can get from 0 to 100 on the highway super easy, but going from 100 to 200 is hard. Going from 200 to 300 is almost impossible. And when you're going that speed, they just start to look at it and go, there's just no way for you to go faster. Right. And they start penalizing you.
Well, and they also penalize sometimes people for doing the right thing. Twitter did the right thing this quarter, got rid of 1 million bogus accounts, bot accounts, and the market punished them 19% in value because their growth slowed or went down. But that's a shame, because when Facebook and Twitter do the right thing, it's a shame that the market doesn't reward them. It really incentivizes them to do the wrong thing.
Well, that's how you get into a lot of these things, is that you don't want to. You're on that railroad, you're on those tracks, and you don't want to get off the track. You can't just say we're going to do a correction.
Yeah. There's so much pressure.
When you're speculating in stocks, you're not betting on who wins the horse race. You're betting on how other people are going to bet on the horse race, which complicates things. The commonality between Twitter and Facebook is that there is also this extra degree of uncertainty about is the U.S. government going to force these two companies to remake their business plan based on how upset they get or how far behind one party or the other is in the midterms. So you've seen how much disruption the EU can create by simply saying, guess what? If anybody wants to suddenly move all their data someplace else, you have to let them do that. And guess what? You can't, all this sort of stuff that now the EU is being able to apply, and now is becoming sort of fashionable, at least for the United States government to talk about. The fact that they're even that Congress people are even publicly raising the incredible idea of saying, well, what if, remember how like back in the 90s we said that Facebook and Twitter type companies are not responsible directly for the content that strangers post on their service? What if we said that you are like a hotel or you are like a newspaper and you are responsible for things that turn up on your site? Why shouldn't we discuss that? And that's the sort of thing that says, you know what, maybe let's invest in tinfoil. Let's invest in window futures. Let's see what we can do outside of Facebook and Twitter.
Of course, one of the other meaningless numbers that we'll be bandied about today is the race to $1 trillion market valuation. Apple's pretty darn close, the closest of the big companies. Neil Seibart writes about it this week in Above Avalon. And one of the things he points out is that when it comes to the market, Apple is viewed as very susceptible to faltering. There continues to be a significant amount of doubt regarding Apple's ability to keep coming up with new products that people love. But he points out this skepticism has surrounded Apple for decades and is being used by the company as a factor motivating employees to surprise the world. Well, do you think Apple, I mean, not that it matters, not that it means anything, it's just a number.
There was a joke. Did you see it? They said, like, if Apple announced iOS 12 blockchain, it would be worth $2 trillion.
That's probably true.
Just the word not even anything. Just put the word in the press release. That's all you need to do.
Yeah. So Apple is currently $924 billion, so it wouldn't take much to get to $1 trillion. Amazon behind it at 848, Alphabet 814. It's really interesting to see these 5 tech giants, Microsoft and Facebook, rounding out the group, amounting to so much value on the market. Again, I don't know what market cap has to do with anything, but I guess the confidence.
A vanity metric.
Yeah, it's a vanity metric, yeah. Anyway, all of these things will be news this afternoon.
Well, and I think that, Apple, one of the things that they've been pretty good at is building this ecosystem where when they release a new product, there's a certain amount of guaranteed, purchasability that a lot of companies don't have. Whether it's, if you look at how Apple just entered subscription services with Apple Music, and to get to 30 or 40 million, users, it's half of Spotify, but they came into it out of nowhere, and they're not the only ones. I mean, Google's hasn't been as successful. Microsoft was a disaster. So it's not that, they have a kind of a built-in audience to do that. And I think that if you look at, if they actually come out with a car, that's probably going to be worth a lot of money. I think that is because there's a lot of people that will buy it. like sight unseen, there's a lot of Apple users that the folks that are buying the iPhone 10 are going to at least go try it.
Well, and that's
an incredible
why
opportunity.
people buy Teslas is that sense of I don't care, I'm going to buy it, because a lot of times you can't even test drive a Tesla before you buy it. You just have to buy it. That's how I bought the Model X, on faith.
Right.
You can't test drive a Model 3. You just have to buy it on faith. Seibart writes about Apple as a case study. He says Apple's management is well aware they're trying to do the seemingly impossible, remain relevant. Aside from a few luxury brands, very few companies have been able to avoid what appears to be the inevitable fall from grace. He says their future won't be determined by the current stuff, iPhone, Apple Watch, services, but by their ability to come up with tools, valuable tools for people. He says Tim Cook is misunderstood. Many have been grading him as if he's a product visionary. He's not. He's tasked with managing something more important than any one product. He's in charge of the process used to develop products. There are visionaries inside that can do it. He talks about AI and machine learning. He says, Seibart also writes, this is in his Above Avalon blog, which is often he's very astute. We also see Apple moving deeper into owning core technologies, a bet that will likely give the company a competitive advantage measured in decades. Core technologies being maybe transportation, as you mentioned, Alex, maybe AI, putting
autonomous technology,
autonomous stuff, putting John Giandrea in charge of this is seen by us anyway, and I would bet by the market is a very astute and good move.
I definitely have thought, at first I thought that the way Google was going after things with the Waymo and everything without any drive, without any steering wheel and everything else was crazy. But the more I think about it, the more I really think that you're going to end up getting into a van or some kind of a lorry style car, and you're just going to get into the back and you're going to have a big screen TV and you're going to watch.
You don't want to. You don't want to have a steering wheel or a pedal,
or even see what's in front of you.
Yeah,
it's just going to be It's,
when you ride the monorail. Of course, it's on a track, but when you ride the monorail in Las Vegas, there's no driver. Does that bug you? No, you just get in. I mean, it is on a track. It's not like there's anything.
It's not just that, but the each one. None of these are under independent, even though they're autonomous, so to speak. They're not under independent control. There's always God. There's always the eye in the sky, aware of where each one of these things are. And it's not as though someone boards, pops a hatch, and uploads new software because they want their monorail to go faster and be able to pass other monorails.
What are you guys looking at for this quarter? What will be your bellwethers?
I mean, just to go back to what you said previously with John Giandrea, I mean, whenever there's a core part of the company, if you don't have a single person in charge of it, it's trouble. It's problematic. Even the App Store for so long, when you had shared responsibility, there was just never one person in charge. And that's improved now that Phil Schiller's taken over. And I think that was key to Apple, because machine learning, computer vision, all these technologies, it goes together with autonomy. It goes together with a lot of what you need for AR ingestion. It's just critically important, and having that one person in charge is invaluable. If it is a serious subject, it needs to be taken seriously, and you need someone serious in charge.
Last quarter they reported $9.2 billion in services revenue, which was a big increase, 27% increase. That's one I'm going to watch. What is services?
Wasn't that amazing? Because I went back, because it was the App Store's birthday, and I went back to Steve Jobs' original introduction where he was talking to Walt Mossberg, and then I think it was Walt Mossberg, but he said, we don't intend to make money on this. We just want to run it so that we can afford to have all the free apps on it because they add extra value, and it'll be like iTunes. It's basically like subsistence content. And then you look at it today, and it's half, if not two-thirds of their services revenue. It's like $4, $5, $6 billion and growing.
Yeah, he was asked how important the App Store would be. Who knows? He said maybe it'll be $1 billion business. Is more than that now, right? At some place in time, that doesn't happen very often. A whole new $1 billion market opens up, 360 million in the first 30 days. I've never seen anything like this. He clearly had high hopes for it, right? I would not. When 30 days after the App Store opened, users had downloaded 30% as many apps as they did iTunes titled.
Like they had like 500 apps at launch. Like the numbers they were talking about were so small compared to now.
He said, I would not trust any of our predictions because reality has so far exceeded them by such a great degree. We've been reduced to spectators just like you. Now, remember, Steve's a great marketer, so this is market speak too. But
it was so much bigger than the Mac. I mean, like they probably had high expectations, but it was just, it was exponentially bigger. Then it was exponentially bigger. Yeah. And it didn't, like that hockey stick was such a hockey stick.
Now, this is 10 years ago. And here's the thing he said that I thought was prescient. I think there are a lot of people, and I'm one of them, who believe that mobile's going to get quite serious because there are things you can do. Obviously, mobile's with you all the time, but there's services you can provide with mobile that obviously are not relevant on a desktop, such as location-based services integrated into your application. This is before Uber existed.
Yep.
But he's absolutely right. I mean, that, he was right. That was I think, in my opinion, the big... It's not the size, it's not the apps, it's the fact that it's mobile and location-based and always-on internet.
That was at the confluence of all those great technologies all into one small packet.
Yeah.
And Apple have been thinking about it for a long time. I mean, since the 90s. They've had time to think about it longer than a lot of other folks had. And so they just didn't. It took them a little while to get there. I mean, I think a lot of it's just the technology coalescing with the idea.
The Journal has made the 45-minute audio interview Nick Winfield did in 2008 with Jobs available for download. Yeah. So be well worth downloading it and listening to it. I guess you probably have to have a subscription
to the Journal. Either Wall Street Journal or because it was done in collaboration with The Information. Because Wingfield's at The Information now. He did the interview.
So they have it.
He did it while he was hired by the Wall Street Journal, so they collaborated on releasing it.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is, it's really great because new Steve Jobs interviews continue to surface, and it's really great to get these and hear them and listen to his voice again and hear his insights 10 years ago to where the App Store is going. But 10 years fast forward, clearly Apple's making a lot of money, and that's one thing I'm going to be looking at is they don't break down services, but App Store is one of them. But I'm going to be looking and seeing growth there. I'm sure they'll mention Apple Music because that's a great story for Apple right now. Probably this will be the quarter they surpass Spotify, at least in the U.S. in paid subscribers, right? Or did they already do that?
No, they're not. I think that Spotify is pretty far ahead. I think they'd have a hard time.
I think internationally Spotify is
internationally.
Internationally,
that's why I said in the U.S. Yeah.
Oh
no, Spotify's like 80 million paid subscribers internationally, like 70 or 80 million. That's going to be it. But I think Apple's getting close. Actually, what is the current Apple Music paid subscribers? Do we know? Is it 50?
I don't remember.
Last I heard was 40, but I don't. But it could have been.
So that's another one to be looking for. Is what number? Because they do like to tout the good stuff, right? They like to say. They don't have to break this stuff out, which has always bothered me.
It was a major music distributor, not Apple or anyone else, who said that Apple Music is now
50
more
million.
in the U.S. And that was July
50
6th.
million is the number. Yeah. So look for that. See if they say anything about that. They might simply say 50% growth.
Right.
What else?
What else? The Bezos graph.
Yeah. What else are we looking for?
Other's always a fascinating category because
What's
it has
other?
Apple Watch, AirPods, but also anything that's not a Mac, an iPad, or an iPhone gets lumped into there. It's all the other hardware.
But they don't
it's like services, but for add-ons.
That's another one where they don't break it down. They'll say something like, "We had the best quarter for Apple Watch we've ever had."
Yeah.
Meaningless.
I mean, given their druthers, I think they would have rather, if they could go back in time and never report iPad sales, I think they'd do that now too.
Are they stuck doing that? They do have to say Mac,
Yeah,
iPad, iPhone. They do have to. They do say those anyway.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that the watch has been an interesting, to watch it grow. I don't see a lot of other things on people's wrists. You mean like when it's either a traditional watch or an Apple Watch, but
You rarely see Apple Watches. Apple Watch. Apple. Are you wearing an Apple Watch? Apple Watch.
No, I see.
Wristwatch. Apple Watch.
I see plenty of high-end Fitbits. I see plenty
I do see
of
a lot of
Garmin
Fitbits.
devices.
I have to say that.
That's I guess we forget that this part of the important selling point of a design of this sort of thing is that I noticed the Fitbits because it's that weird like emerald shaped design, and so I don't register it as someone's wearing a fitness watch. It's like someone's wearing specifically that model, and so I notice it a lot. But yeah, it's definitely more than I see other devices, but. They don't own the market yet. The people are really embracing like the lower line, like the $100, $200 ones. I was talking to somebody at a public event a few days ago, and I asked him, well, why did you go for like this Garmin device that goes for about $150 or whatever instead of an Apple Watch? And he said, oh well, I just didn't have like $500 for an Apple Watch, and this was a new device, and I needed to tell him, oh well, that they're down to like 250 now if you want to get the base model, and he didn't even know that.
Yeah, and I think that it's to Apple's advantage that they don't have a majority stake in a lot of these things because it keeps them well out of antitrust positions. I think that Android is the best thing that ever. I know that Apple may not say this, but Android was the best thing that ever happened to Apple. Otherwise, they would definitely be dealing with antitrust.
Actually, it's so funny because Apple was the best thing that ever happened to Microsoft. In fact, Microsoft kept Apple alive
partially for that,
just because they didn't want to get the antitrust. Now it's the shoes on the other foot. Right. Yeah. Anything else to say about the results? Anything else?
I like the questions. I mean, blessed be the Gene Munsters and Katie Hubertys and everybody, because sometimes they ask like the most boring question imaginable, and sometimes they know that Tim Cook will never answer the question, but they try to find increasingly creative ways to ask it. And once in a while, like he'll just say like he talked about AR way before it was a product, which was unusual.
Right.
And he talked about autonomous technologies, and you just never know. Once in a while, they get the magic spot between his interest and their really obfuscated question, and we get a little bit of magic, and those are my favorite moments.
What's your question? What would you ask Tim Cook if you could get on that call?
Oh, I don't know, because I'm no good at making those. Like Gene Munster asked, "Are you going to make a television set in 900 different ways?"
Yeah,
and I could barely think of two.
Yeah.
No, that is definitely a real thing. It's like the party game where you have to get someone to say the word watermelon without, and here you can't use the word fruit, you can't use the word summer, you can't use it's sometimes you feel as though you're both like understand you sometimes I'm talking to even someone at Apple, and I can hear them basically thinking, I'm willing to answer. If he asks this in the right way, there's something I can tell him, but I have to wait for him to come up with a question of not what are your immediate plans for the Mac Mini. You can instead say, do you think the market is leaning more towards consumer as opposed to pro these days? And then you might get something out of them. But these calls are always really important, because this is not only is this a really rare opportunity for someone to simply ask a question of the CEO, and they're in a position where they're going to almost have to answer, but also there's a legal component with this, because this is advice to shareholders. So if they obfuscate, if they are really awfully selective, Apple is certainly not going to downright lie, but there's always going to be that liability that if they indicate that the App Store is doing better than they thought, or that there is a product coming in AR that isn't, then that could actually become a legal issue for them down the line. rest, if they lie to me or Rene, who cares?
All right. Nothing more we want to look for.
Yeah, just the projections. I mean, that's probably going to be the biggest piece everyone's looking at is what they say for next quarter and the general outlook.
Yeah.
I am keen to see if they use this opportunity to talk about sales of the new super duper MacBook Pros. They might, if there's exceptionally good news to say, they certainly wouldn't hide it right now.
But
it wouldn't be in the results though. But they might just mention it anyway.
Yeah, mention exactly. It's not.
It wouldn't be a case of. So if they don't say anything, it doesn't mean it's bad either. They try to highlight things that are kind of.
Again,
they used to do that.
They used to say bad news?
No, they used to say they used to put up like a special press release over the weekend to say how much pre-orders and then how many sales there were back when everything was exploding, but not so much.
That's such a high price ticket. You're not going to have big numbers on it. I have to say, just anecdotally, I'm super happy with the
me too.
i9, so-called hot a MacBook Pro. I got top of the line with everything but the hard drive, and I just adore it. It is noticeably faster in almost every use case. Lightroom is finally usable, which is a big deal.
The hard drive, to me, I've been editing with abandon. Like I used to so carefully have external drives and delete all the because Final Cut is so
Did you buy the 4 terabyte?
No. When they announced it, I was like, oh God, I have to have that. Then when I saw the price, I was like, oh God, I can't afford that. So I'm with 2 terabytes, but it's still way more than it's enough for me to be able to do 2-3 videos live on the machine at any one time. And before I was struggling to do one because my old machine was like 512 or something.
Yeah. I actually am happy with the 1 terabyte. I still have 750 gigabytes left. And I had bought the 2 and I decided not to keep it and I kept the 1 and that's fine for me. I bought one of those Samsung T5 mobile backup devices, 1 terabyte. I bought a new one. I had the old one that was a USB Type A connector, but I got the Type C.
Right.
So it's fast. And I just use Super Duper, and every few days I plug it in. Super Duper launches when it sees it, backs up any changes. It's bootable. It's golden. It's golden.
Okay.
And I bought the same size as my internals so that I have a
13-inch. On 13-inch, all the ports are now full bandwidth, which wasn't the case the last few years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and I already showed you the dongle I got, so I feel like I'm happy. I have no. And by the way, keyboard, because I know Andy hates it and Rene loves it, and I was in the hate camp, and I've moved into not the love it camp, but the can live with it camp. I think those.
I like it slightly less, but everyone else seems to like it.
You like
more.
it less.
I'm obviously built. Well, it's just a slightly mushier, and I was really enjoying
That's why I
really
like
crisp one. I know. I'm built backwards. I don't know.
You're missing the tickety tack.
Yeah, I don't like the.
Andy's looking at me with a mix of pity and despair.
No, again, you never have to defend liking what you like. That's a maximum.
Thank you.
I'm just saying that, and I'm glad that Leo loves his new purchase. I'm just saying that I can't imagine anyone in Apple on a promotional video in front of a white screen saying, "We honestly think you will learn to accept this keyboard."
No. Yeah.
That's not aspirational. That's what I'm saying.
I don't aspire to love it. I aspire to be able to use it. Touch bar, every once in a while I hit it, and I'm so mad at myself because the screen will turn off. And I'm still not a fan of the touch bar. I'm a huge fan of Touch ID, though, so that kind of maybe makes up for it. And as I mentioned last week, Better Touch Tool helps a lot. I don't use the touch bar as a controller, but more as a informational. So I put the time there. I put the battery life there. That's a good place for it. And
I use it as a scrubber just because it's like a visual. I don't know.
That would be good for it, yeah.
But because they just don't let you scrub everything on the mouse, on the trackpad for some reason, like tabs on a browser. But they let you scrub it on the touch bar. And it's so fast to go through that stuff.
Another thing I should mention that to watch for is Apple Pay. They announced that eBay is going to start taking Apple Pay next year. Yeah. Apple Pay is, it's one of those things where everybody understood that it's a big deal when they announced it, but it was also one of those things that's going to be a little like a train leaving the station, slow to gain speed. I think it's starting to gain that speed now.
I have to admit that I ran across my first website that really just like an independent website that just supports Apple Pay.
It's really nice.
And I just clicked on it, and then my phone vibrated, and I touched the thing, and it was done. And it was
too easy.
And it was mail. It had my address. It had everything. It just went whoop, and I was like, oh, okay, now. I used to be I didn't want to order anything other than Amazon because I just don't want to put all my information in again and everything else. Now I was like, I only want Apple Pay.
And that's another reason why Touch ID on the laptop is really great, because it supports Apple Pay. I have the same experience because I don't know. I have this problem with Instagram. I buy stuff on Instagram. I don't know why. Those ads seem to get me. Maybe I'm at a weekend stay in the middle of the night when I'm looking at it.
I can't even register seeing an ad on Instagram.
I just bought pants on it. I had something wrong with me. But the thing I always hope for is, oh, God, I hope I have to enter data in to buy this because I'm not going to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing that always gets me is if it supports Apple Pay, I'm screwed. I'm going to buy it.
Yes.
So if you're a merchant selling online, that's probably a good tip.
Even I went to New York. I got out of the cab. The cab took Apple Pay. I went to the hotel. The vending machine in the hotel took Apple Pay. It was just it was like living in Canada all over again.
Again, NFC payments, and the same is true, I think, for like Android NFC. Where it's like the day there's a thank goodness there's a vending the vending machines at my local commuter rail station. Again, they take tap to pay because the times where I don't have $1.25 on me because I'm paying I'm even paying for my train tickets on my phone apps. Like, oh, thank goodness I do get to get a Diet Dr. Pepper for this hour long. There's going to be a time where people. There's just like it was unbelievable to imagine that there would be a generation that would not know how to write in cursive, but then it happened, and now there's going to be a generation of kids who don't really understand, who have to have like a little card to remind them like what the different size coins are and what they mean and and how much they mean. Because
I can barely fill out a check anymore, Andy.
Well, and I always think about I look at the guys at the hotel, and all those tip-based things don't work anymore because I never have any cash ever. And at first I felt really bad about it, and I would go through this process of trying to make sure I had cash so I could tip the folks that are all this stuff. And after a while, it just became this thing like, okay, I can't keep on managing this. No one else is.
But it goes the other way too. It's like I still remember the first year that sometimes I'm at a Comic-Con. And I kind of like this person's sketchbook, but it's really not worth like $30 to me. But I don't want this person to think that, oh, I have sampled your wares and found them wanting. Good day, sir. And I would say, oh well, it's still the first day of the show. If I still have like cash left over, I still have to save up my cash. If I still have cash left over, maybe I'll see it. I'll come back at the end of the day. So oh well, I do have Square. I can't take a credit card. And I'm like, do I want to say? No, I just think your sketchbook is overpriced. Or do I say, yes, absolutely wonderful. Yes, I will take your sketchbook. I have been caught like that. Now I can't use that lie anymore because at these street fairs, you can now use your card for everything, which again is another lovely thing because it means that instead of going to the MIT flea market and saying I'm going to take $100 with me, and I know that when my wallet is empty, I'm done buying things. Now I can say, I really do want a Kim 1. And $300 is not that much to spend on a Kim 1.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it's $200. Well, okay, this was a Kim 1 like in a rack with like it was being used like to control experiments, and it was gorgeous.
Hey, to each his own. We all have our needs.
Again, you enjoy your 0.55 millimeter keyboard.
Yeah.
I will enjoy my 1977 computer.
Let's take a break, and then we'll come back with more. Andy Anatko, birthday boy Rene Ritchie, Alex Lindsay, talking about Apple. I am so thrilled to welcome Masterclass as a sponsor to our shows on Twit because I'm so thrilled that Masterclass exists. If you don't know about Masterclass, you got to find out about Masterclass. Imagine learning investigative journalism from Bob Woodward or acting from Samuel L. Jackson. Malcolm Gladwell teaches interviewing. Annie Leibovitz teaches photography. Ron Howard teaches directing. And on and on and on. You want to learn how to shoot a hoop from Steph Curry? How to cook from Thomas Keller or Wolfgang Puck? This is Masterclass, the best, most expert, the geniuses of our era, for the first time ever, on camera teaching you their skills. It is absolutely amazing. I mean, imagine watching a scene, and I did this the other night, from Pulp Fiction, having Samuel L. Jackson walk actors through it, bit by bit, explaining the diner scene. No, you got to understand this, you got to understand that. That is worth the price of admission alone, but it doesn't stop there. Now, Masterclass, there's my friend Steve Martin. Want to learn comedy from the greatest comic of all time? And by the way, even if you're not interested in learning comedy, sitting and watching Steve Martin, it's hysterical, it's fun, it's the best TV show ever. Jane Goodall on conservation, Mark Jacobs on fashion design. I mean, Gordon Ramsay on how to yell at people. How about astronaut Chris Hadfield? He's talking about going to Mars. About space exploration. And the thing that's great about Masterclass is it's so well produced. And now, Alex, you told me you actually subscribe to this.
Almost from day one.
It's like watching a filmmaker. I mean, it's really good stuff.
And I think that one of the things that's really interesting is they're just getting a hold of people. I mean, I don't even know what the budget is.
Sorkin on screenwriting.
Yeah, and
right?
And the interesting thing about this is that they're just getting all these people that you don't want them to leave the world without leaving behind what they figured out.
I asked them, because I talked to them yesterday, Masterclass. I said, off the record. It's not going to be off the record because I'm going to tell you the answer. Off the record. How the hell do you get these people to do this? Right. And he said, you'd be surprised. People want to pass it forward, pay it forward.
Right.
They want people to know how they do this stuff. It's exactly what you said. They don't want to leave the world without the secrets.
Well, and what they've proven is that they're going to take good care of your idea. They're not.
Oh, boy, do they!
That that if you're a Gordon Ramsay or you're a Serena Williams or you know that they're going to do the right thing and have you look good. You're not going to. It's not going to be this kind of.
I'll never be an Annie Leibovitz for portraits. Right. But I don't care to watch Annie Leibovitz talk about her technique, her craft, what she does, how she thinks. That's worth it. It's better than a documentary. This is awesome. And yes, now you could try it free for a week, every one of these. So if you have any question about whether these are amazing, Deadmau5 takes his hat off. He takes I've never seen his face, and teaches the secret of electronic music production. Unbelievable. It's more than just the video, though. So Annie Leibovitz, let me give you an example. 15 lessons. There's a workbook you can download with lesson recaps, assignments, additional resources. There's office hours, so you can have a question and get feedback. She'll select student questions and answer them. And there's, of course, a great discussion group, too. So it's a social network of other people taking the class. This is, I just want to say thank you for existing, Masterclass, and inviting you to try it free for a week at masterclass.com/MacBreak. It's enough to take a whole class or sample a bunch of them, and I guarantee you're going to subscribe. Can I also point out, if you have a family member, and I hear this all the time, there are a lot of people who have kids who want to be photographers. I was talking to somebody who gave his 9-year-old son, another radio host, gave his 9-year-old son a filmmaking class,
right?
Because this kid was into movies.
Well, and
to see how Ron Howard sets up a shot.
And I've been setting it up for my kids because my daughter literally, my daughter's a little geeky. And I never think that one of my kids would be geeky. She's like, I just want to watch more documentaries. I'm like,
you want to celebrate that.
Yeah,
so it's a great gift.
I got something for you.
It's great for yourself. Get the whole family. Kids will love R.L. Stine teaching how to write young adult fiction.
Right.
Or James Patterson teaching how to write thrillers. He was one of the first they did. That's the other thing they said happens is once you get James Patterson and Steve Martin and Wolfgang Puck, you get a few. Then the other people, everybody knows everybody in Hollywood. Yeah. They go, this is pretty good. Yeah. Okay, we're going to do it too.
And they do make it look really good. As someone who does production, it's like made him look good.
They just David Mamet. You were saying
I love David Mamet.
They just added David Mamet. That's teaching writing.
He's so like nonchalant and just kind of like,
here's how you do it.
He's got this kind of.
To get to, by the way, just to get to see his writing studio, because these are shot on location. They're not in a boring studio. This is Mamet where he writes. That's by itself. That's awesome. They've got lots more coming. If you go to the bottom of the website, you'll see the more they've got planned. And They said they don't want me to tell you what they've got, but there is a little bit coming up, and there's a lot more. They're getting some really amazing people. Spike Lee is coming. Margaret Atwood. You want to learn poker from a world champion, Daniel Negreanu? I mean, this is great stuff. I don't. This should sell itself. I don't need to tell you. If you've never heard about it, I think the Samuel L. Jackson is pretty special. You go into an acting class with Jackson.
Works that are weird.
And you get to learn how to act.
The scene in the movie is trying to accomplish something. Do all the things that you have in your mind that will inform the audience when they see this character. Oh, that's who that is.
I mean, you just. And by the way, when they show a little behind the scenes, the best part of Masterclass is it is a masterclass in how to shoot interviews. You know, so when you see the behind the scenes, it's actually, I love watching the behind the scenes stuff because you're like, they're.
Well, here's the diner scene. So he's working with these students in the diner scene.
The person he's speaking to and to the audience. Truth is, you're the weak, and I'm the tyranny.
What is that? What is he?
Isn't this awesome? So even if you're not going to be an actor, it will enhance your enjoyment of movies so much to know what's going on. I don't know. I could go on and on. Masterclass.com/MacBreak. My only problem is when I sit down, and which one am I going to watch tonight?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a big chess fan. To get the world champion Garry Kasparov teaching you how to play chess. I know that's kind of a niche one, but that's incredible. I can go on and on and on.
I've gone on to a long string of the cooking ones.
Yeah, the cooking's good. That's actually I was talking to my son Henry, and he wants to be a cook. He said, "Oh yeah, I subscribe."
But I'll watch anything that Gordon Ramsay does. I watch just because it's this mixture of like it's not that hard and he's really precise. You know, like it's you know there's like
Keller, Wolfgang Puck.
We've done streams with Keller and he is amazing. You know, I haven't watched that one yet.
Great, one of the greatest chefs in America. I'm next on my agenda, Malcolm Gladwell, because it says Malcolm Gladwell teaches writing, but it's actually he talks about his interviewing, and I'm always trying to get to be a better interviewer.
To your previous point, Leo, there was Georges St. Pierre, most famous Quebec mixed martial artist of all time. He went to do gymnastics class, and they said he'd never be a good gymnast, but that wasn't the point. To be a good gymnast, he'd have to give up everything else he did and just do gymnastics. But learning the gymnastics made him so much better at what he did. And that's what I feel like with these classes. I would have to be like Annie Leibovitz, I would have to only do that as often as she did that.
It's not going to happen.
But it can make me so much better at the enjoyment that I get out of doing that it's so beyond worthwhile.
Yeah. For a limited time, get a free 7-day trial at masterclass.com/MacBreak. It is incredible. Try it free for a week at masterclass.com/MacBreak. Masterclass.com/MacBreak. All right, on we go with the show. Apple hires a developer of a VR painting app that you might be familiar with, CyberPaint, to work on VR.
You see this drip from Apple on VR. You know, they're definitely not ignoring it.
Sterling Crispin did. I haven't used CyberPaint. I've used Tilt Brush.
I haven't.
Yeah, me too.
I've used mostly Medium, and so that's what I've been most familiar with.
Yeah, but Apple, you know, it's not just Serenity Caldwell. Apple's hiring the best and the brightest, and I feel bad for iMore when Serenity leaves and goes to, and you especially because now somebody's got to transcribe those calls, not Serenity.
Micah Sargent.
Oh, Micah's going to do it. You don't have to do it. Okay, that's good news. But
it's funny. I went to talk to them about health, and I think 9 out of the 10 people in the room were doctors. Almost all of them still had 20% patient loads at famous Mayo Clinic and famous hospitals. And they were, because there's been a few articles about Apple's too arrogant to consult with external experts in these fields, but it's that Apple, it's like the pro workflow group. They would rather hire them and have them on the team.
Isn't that amazing?
That way they don't have to worry about like Lucasfilm being upset they're looking at advanced copy of Star Wars, but also they have these people there every day. And Steve Jobs famously was critical of consultants because they come in, give their advice, and leave. And who cares if it works or not? But when you're leading the project, you are so vested in making sure that it works. You have no option. And that's why I think they love to to build these expert groups internally.
Well, and I think also that there's always a risk, especially when you're doing something new, that you're teaching. If you're teaching an outside person, you're asking, no matter what questions you ask, you're setting them up to understand a lot more about that subject matter. That now that knowledge base may go to another company. You're basically paying. They get a lot smarter. Because they're working with you about that technology, and then they go work for one of your competitors and consult for them. And, that means that, you want to get them after they have that information, but you don't want to give it to them and have them go somewhere else.
Is this an Apple patent, the comfort profile patent? Apple Insider says Apple's self-driving car system could change how it drives, not just outside sensors, but inside sensors by detecting passenger stress levels.
Oh, don't steal Georgia Dow next, please.
Georgia's on her way. Comfort Profiles is filed in March, published on Thursday, describes how an autonomous driving and navigation system can move through an environment with motions governed by a number of factors set indirectly by the passengers. A sensor could monitor people in the car, their anxiety level, by looking at your eye movements, body posture, gestures, pupil dilation, blinking body temperature, heartbeat, perspiration, head position, and then decide, I think we should slow down in this area.
Well, I think one of the things that I think is going to be interesting as we go to autonomous is that I know that with Uber, I don't care. I mean, I don't care that the Uber, unless I'm really, really late, but usually I'm not, because it's not that complicated to just get in the car and let it go do its thing. And you get in a little earlier because you can keep on working. There's all these things that'll happen that I think that in a lot of ways we're going to have cars that aren't necessarily going faster, but actually going slowly and more.
I wouldn't mind that.
But the whole thing is that I don't care if it's going, it doesn't need to go 70, because what happens is you give yourself more time because you're not like rushing to finish something at home and then get in the car to the airport. You're like, well, I'll just keep on working on it when I get in the car. And so that is, you leave earlier, all those things happen. And so I think that I don't think we're going to have cars going faster. I think they're going to have actually just become more deliberate.
Well, you're also talking about things like there are people who get car sick very easily, and you could basically say that take those curves much more gently. Mm-hmm. Don't accelerate quite as quickly as you normally would.
Right.
It would be really, really good to be able to tell my creative to have control of a driving profile where I can say, here's what I prefer. Like I would much rather be take me don't have me going in and out of huge bright sunlight. Please don't actually drop me off about a half a block away from where it is, because I don't want to be making like a big presentation of where I am. There's a lot of interesting things here that it's not just gun it, I'm running late, just gun it. Take the sidewalk if you have to.
I hate to, I don't like rumors. On the other hand, I know there are a lot of people sitting and expecting that it's only a month or so away for an iPhone launch and an iPad launch. Maybe, well, first of all, will it be September for the iPad, or will they do, as they have done sometimes in the past, separate the iPhone and iPad announcements and make the iPad announcement in October?
It's hard because they have control of the Steve Jobs Theater now, so they could, but it's still a massive effort every time they do an event. So I think if they have their druthers, the big September event when they announce the iPhone and Apple TV and Apple Watch,
do it all at once.
I think that's, everyone likes that better because you don't have to travel twice.
But as we've pointed out, and it was clear with the MacBook Pro, Apple doesn't announce anything until it's ready, and they're not going to be guided by an event calendar. If it's not ready, it's not ready. But here now, tell me if you trust Mac Otakara. It's a Japanese Apple enthusiast site, because they have a very extensive iPad Pro rumor. Is this trustworthy?
They are once in a while, occasionally okay.
Okay, because there's some things that scared me, like the disappearance of the headphone jack.
Well, I mean, some of it makes, like, when you actually read it, and I know it's translated from the Japanese, but when you actually read, like, they talk about mic fusion, and then it goes into it's possible they'll get rid of the headphone jack. The headphone jack, they got rid of it famously in the iPhone. They didn't in the iPad and the Mac, because pro audio users still use the hell out of a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack.
There's a lot of space in an iPad.
Well, that's the thing, is that's going to change, because we have all these people who keep saying delete all the bezels, but there's a bunch of components very comfortably put in those bezels, and if you remove them, which is what it sounds like they're doing, keeping screen size the same and removing the extra bezel, but it doesn't really matter because you can expand screen size. But then the screen display, that's not lying on top. That goes deep into the device. And if there's no bezel around it, they have to start moving the 3.5 underneath the screen, which changes the whole look of the. So, I mean, I can believe that part. It was the rest of it that was super confusing.
Well, also, you can't make the bezel too big because how do you hold the iPad? I mean, it's not like a phone you can hold in one hand. It can have bezels all the way to the edge. But a tablet, you need to hold it with your hands. You need somewhere to put your fingers.
That can work because there's a lot of intelligence going by in edge rejection. That trying to figure out, did he mean to be tapping this edge of the screen or is he just holding it wrong? However, I think there's a problem when you start to get into the issue of, is that thumb going to be covering up something that's important, or is the user going to be kind of okay with blocking part of the screen by having no place to hold it, or more importantly, having no place that is safe from fingerprints anymore? And so I think that it's an interesting question to solve. Getting back to Rene's comment, that sounds like an Apple problem to solve and not a consumer problem to solve, as I'm pleased to usually say. And if you think back to the time where at some point they decided people are asking for all these features, but they don't want the sacrifices to have to come into them. Apple had to make a lot of changes to get that 0.55 millimeter keyboard. No one was asking for it, but they did it anyway. So I feel as though if Apple were to delete the headphone jack, they are completely 100% on the hook for making a choice that's going to inconvenience a lot of people.
I agree.
You can't blame the hardware design. It's totally 100% on Apple. They chose to not have. They would have chosen not to have a headphone jack.
And I still use my headphone jack on my iPad because I don't have one on my iPhone, so I often play music.
Just imagine like a DJ who needs now a lightning splitter that goes from lightning charge to, because you want to charge it while you're using it, and the jack.
So the other thing.
Also, where's the Touch ID go if they're going completely non-bezel-less?
Face ID.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another thing. So now this is one that's really controversial. They claim that the smart connector, which is used to power keyboards, has now moved to the bottom of the iPad, which means
so you can't charge while your keyboard is down. And also you got to move the speakers now. They've got to be on the landscape edge.
This is not true.
No, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, never say never, but it makes no sense to me.
Yeah. So I'm going to ignore that one. They also say that the Face ID, and this one I would guess makes sense, is going to move to where the camera is already. But I think that will require, I think, a not so hard solution of sideways Face ID, right?
So they're saying it's impossible. My understanding is, like, again, it's a neural network, and when a neural network, you train it. It's not code. You train it like you would train a pet, which is horrifying or spectacular depending on your point of view. But they chose to train it in portrait because it was too complicated for the first iteration to have it do both, because then you got to have a branch in the neural network and train for the two different conditions, and it adds complexity, and they were trying to get it out the door. Fine. They already started adding like alternate appearances, so obviously the system can expand. By some stretch of the imagination, let's just say that portrait and landscape orientation aren't working. There's some race condition or some training problem they're encountering. They could just make it landscape only, the same way the iPhone is. There's no way that it can't be landscape.
Right.
People said like the dot projector may not reach it, but the dot projector, you're already holding it at arm's length from an iPhone. Holding it at arm's length from an iPad is not, at least as I understand physics, is not that different.
You got to be able to solve that. And why wouldn't you want to solve that? You want to make that face recognition work in as many orientations as possible.
And they say they're going to put the smart keyboard vertically, and that makes no sense.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, sorry. Remember, it's really, really hard. Like you can count on people using an iPhone in vertical orientation almost all the time. You really can't count on that with an iPad. When it comes to an iPad Pro, like a large screen, it just isn't natural for people to work on it in vertical orientation. Remember, one of the launch accessories for the iPad was a dockable keyboard that forced you to have the iPad in, again, sheet of paper sort of orientation, and it was really super weird. It was like being working on a Xerox Star. It was very, very weird. So there's a lot of problems that are very, very subtle, and a lot of them go away if you simply decide that perhaps no bezels is not a great solution for this sort of thing. Either that, or you decide to put cameras in multiple locations, and that will jack the cost up. I don't know if Apple's interested in doing that either.
So we should probably just ignore. It is the silly season for rumors, since we're.
Yeah, I did a whole video on why I thought it was dumb yesterday, just because I thought it was.
Yeah, but
deleting the headphone jack that's the only one that I would maybe support, because it's just stupid enough for Apple to want to do that.
Do you think There will be Face ID on the next iPad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. They want it.
Yeah.
It's a core. It's like Touch ID. It's a core. It's a core strength. It's a signature feature.
Right.
And they would be, especially on $1,000 device, that they're saying this is don't buy an inexpensive Windows laptop. Buy an iPad instead. And your Windows laptop, its Face ID. Excuse me. It's lowercase face, lowercase ID is not nearly as good as this.
Now,
I think D Rambo found code already in iOS 12 for the Animoji on iPad already. So
okay, good.
That's a little bit of work to go to if you're not going to use it.
I know it's Samsung. I know it's dissing the iPhone, but I have to say I love the Ingenius ads. They're funny. Come on, there's a new one on multitasking.
I always just wonder what Samsung components feel about this, because a lot of times they diss things that were actually components.
Right, they come from Samsung. Let's look at this one. This is Ingenius is making fun of.
So I want to know how to do the split screen, because my sister was just doing it on her Galaxy S9.
Oh, yeah. So what you're going to have to do is open up the App Store. Go ahead and open it for me real quick.
No. I want to use 2 apps on the screen at the same time. I don't want another app.
Okay, I get that, but you have beautiful nails.
Thank you. They change color. They multitask, too.
So your nails multitask.
But your phone doesn't.
Upgrade to Galaxy. They've made fun of a lot of Apple features. I don't know if that's fair. She's using a phone. You can split screen on the iPad.
It's always fair. Samsung did these great commercials, like the hipster kind of commercials, a few years ago, and I thought they were hugely successful. And then, like Inside Baseball, but Samsung Korea got upset at the success of Samsung America, and
isn't that funny?
Squashed the complaint
because of the components.
No, because they were upset that the American team was doing something that they had not succeeded in doing.
Oh, how funny!
It's just so petty, and a bunch of people left, and that they sort of had terrible ads after that because they're going back to their old playbook. And now it looks like they're starting to be willing to actually do good stuff again. Which it's great.
My favorite though is the Notch family in the ad. They all have. It's very quick. You actually have to freeze the video if you want to see it, but it's mother, father, and son, and the son, by the way, has AirPods in his ears, all with Notch haircuts.
I loved him on Star Trek.
Really? He's from Star Trek?
No, but that's a look they would give someone on Star Trek.
It's very Spocky. Yeah. Very Spocky look. All right. I just wanted to throw that in because it's silly. iPhone 8, the #1 selling phone in the U.S. of A in the second quarter of all phones. No, of iPhones. It was #1 selling iPhone. But I don't think we can say. Can we say that the iPhone 10 is a failure? No. iPhone 8, 8 Plus, and 10, the new generation, are 54% of U.S. iPhone sales in the quarter.
There's a famous saying that if you double your price and you don't lose half your users, you're making money.
That's not only a saying, it's math.
Yeah, no, totally. So if the ASP goes up on iPhone and Apple doesn't lose the percentage of people that overcomes that ASP, they are making money. And it looks like they're probably going to make money on iPhone 10 again this quarter.
I asserted, maybe incorrectly earlier today on iOS Today, that actually Apple's success with the iPhone 10 is a bellwether for the phone market, that people will pay more than $1,000 for a smartphone.
They have some expensive phones coming out in China too, which is counterintuitive to people who don't live there.
Yeah. But on the other hand, it's the other thing we have to notice about this is that the top featured phone that Apple makes is no longer the top selling phone. Where people were asked, we would have imagined that Apple users they are known for having more money than the rest of the market, but even they are saying that again the iPhone 10 is a huge success. Anybody who says different is just wrong. But nonetheless, it didn't displace the iPhone 8. It didn't displace the sweets. Whatever price people are paying for the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus seems to be the sweet spot. It seems to be the amount of money that they are comfortable spending on an iPhone. So it means that Apple will, if it means anything, it does mean that Apple will still have to market the iPhone 10 as the special, extra expensive one, as opposed to here's the one that we think that everybody's going to buy.
I do think that things that are around the depth sensor is important, and the extra features, because I know that I love the Memoji and I love all the little bits and bobs.
And they don't work with it.
And you see someone else saying, "Oh, you have an 8." I was like, I can't.
Sorry,
I don't have anything to.
You have a current
iPhone,
do that?
But I'm like, well, you do that with an iPhone 10.
Yeah. So. What we haven't talked about it. What do we think Apple's going to do next month? Almost next month in September.
I think they're going to release a phone.
The dummy's already being leaked. There's video up now of the.
So it's 3 phones, all iPhone 10 style, right?
Yeah, and so what happens is the schematics get leaked. Manufacturers who make like cases who don't want to be there exactly when Apple launches get their hands on the schematics, build out dummy units so they can size test their cases, and those dummy units end up on YouTube. So you get a good look at what. Sometimes they're wrong, like with the fingerprint scanner on the back of the iPhone 10. Sometimes they totally blow it.
And they have 3,000 cases that don't.
Yeah. Well, that happened. That happened famously one year too. Yeah. They made the teardrop design.
So,
so 3 designs. One of them is LCD, which is using a new active LCD technology. Because the secret, one of the things that Apple displayed that was kind of clever is they folded the screen back on itself so that it could really go edge to edge. There's not even a chin on the iPhone 10, and that's because the display actually folds back around and then plugs into the power supply and the driver and all the components. And that was hard to do with LCD. I forget if it was Sharp or somebody showed that off like a year ago with an LCD. It uses an active LCD panel. And apparently that works now too. So Apple can do it with LCD this year. And we're going to get the 6.5, I think, which is the lower, like the 5C version of the iPhone 10, which is going to be more colorful and slightly lower price and have fewer features, but it'll be more mass market. And then we'll have the replacement for the iPhone 10, which will be very similar but amped up, especially with cameras for the iPhone 10. And then the iPhone 10 Plus, which will be the same thing, but for people who really want, like the iPhone is their primary computing device and they want as big a screen as they can possibly have on it, up to and including it being a really tiny tablet.
That one's a 6.5-inch screen. Looks basically like, according to these probably accurate renders, just exactly like an iPhone 10, just bigger.
Yeah, it's the same size as an iPhone 8 Plus, but with. So
it's like if an iPhone 10 and an iPhone 8 had a baby.
Or you put the OLED edge-to-edge screen on the iPhone 8. That's what you'd get. So the 5.8 is pretty much the same size, just beefed up. And then the 6.1 is just the 6.1-inch screen is just the less expensive LCD.
And I'm hoping, I don't know if it's ready yet, but I'm hoping that we'll get, famously Apple's been working on AR camera stuff, and we see it now for the first time in FaceTime and in the Messages app, but it's not in the camera app, which surprised a lot of people. Yeah. But I think that's because it's just on the front-facing true depth camera. And when the back gets true depth, if that happens to be this year, and maybe it will be because it's been a couple of years, they've been working on it, then you'll start to have like that real AR camera experience front and back.
Some rumors that there'll be 3 lenses. Is that why?
I think that's next year.
Next year. Okay.
There may be, but I think that it could be this. Like, it's hard to tell because some of the stuff is, if it's ready on time, it'll ship. If it's not ready on time, it's next year.
Prices?
They're going to keep this. Yeah. They're going to keep the same lineup. I think I think they were experimenting a bit last year and the year before with what happens when we sort of create a broader spectrum. And I think that the numbers that they got say that they're stay the course. I still think you're going to be spending about $650 to $750 or $800 for your basic OK phone, and still about $1,000 or a little bit more for the next level up.
No SE style though, right? That's
not. I think it's still in the works, but it looks like the iPhone 10 they're not keeping around the same way they didn't keep the iPhone 5S around because it's too expensive to manufacture. So that drops away, and the new LCD phone takes its place at $100 lower. So where the iPhone 7 iPhone 7 and 7 Plus are now, and then the new iPhone 10 and 10 Plus take the place of the iPhone 8. I don't know if they've been subtly bumping that price over the last few years, like $20 more when it got the second camera. So who knows where it'll finally fall, but I think it'll be below what the current iPhone 10 is, around what the iPhone 8 is, and then the new lower cost version will replace the 7 at the $100 minus mark.
Rumors that Samsung at least has perfected fingerprint reading through glass, so can have a full screen experience, no bezel experience, but still have a fingerprint reader. Any chance that Apple will be able to do that?
Yeah.
Or want to? Or question is, will they want to do it?
They have Face ID, and they have real Face ID where it doesn't work. You don't have to hold it. You don't have to intentionally look at it. Right. It works incredibly fast. At this point, having a Touch ID would be kind of superfluous.
So if I'm an iPad owner who loves Touch ID, you say kiss that goodbye too.
Well, I mean, the thing is, and I think they were being candid. They said that they literally, in order to get Face ID done, they had to burn the boats behind them. And if they gave themselves Touch ID as an opt-out, then they would never be under the pressure they needed to get Face ID done.
Bye-bye Touch ID then. Although we still have, it's ironic because we still have headphone jacks and Touch ID on the MacBook.
it's so hard to get this technology to scale. Like it'll be the same thing as Touch ID. Touch ID went from iPhone to iPad, and then it went to Mac. And Face ID is going to go from iPhone to iPad, and then next year or the year after, it'll go to Mac.
So everything will be eventually Face ID.
So, see, people love the idea of security, but they really want convenience. And Touch ID was more convenient than a passcode. And when Face ID works, it is even more convenient than Touch ID because it feels almost invisible. And eventually you'll get to the point where all security is passive and it's just bio-reading us all the time and letting us in if it has a sufficiently high trust level. But we're not there yet. But all this stuff is, like Apple will tell you, like the point was never to make Touch ID or never to make Face ID. It was to make security more convenient. And whatever best does that is what they're going to implement.
And I think that all the other things that come with the depth camera, which I think they have to put in everything over time because they want
if you want AR to take off.
If you want the AR, if you want the Memoji stuff to work, like that, they spent a lot of quality time at WWDC keynote talking about Memojis. They don't do that if they're not planning to keep on rolling that process out. And I think that. I think we're just getting started, with those things. If you look at the technology that people are working on, whether it's Cinema 4D put out their own app and there's Face track, which we've talked about before. Eventually, Apple, I think, will do that, where you can kind of scan yourself and build your own little have the Memoji be like created just from looking at your face. And I think that those are the kind of things that they're going to keep on rolling out. But to make that really work, they have to make it ubiquitous. They can't have a phone left out. Or the laptop, but it probably will take another 2 years to do that.
Did you love Time Bandits?
I did.
Who didn't?
Yep.
Loved it.
Except for the last minute of it, I loved it.
See, my memory of the last minutes disappeared by the memory of the first few minutes. One of the most amazing opening sequences of any movie in history, if you ask me. Terry Gilliam's Time Bandits, 1981 movie, now apparently going to be made as a TV
it's a very interesting choice.
Apple.
Like you look at what Apple is kind of clumping together, and there's definitely a grand scheme to it. But that was the first one I was like, wow, I don't understand that one at all. I love it. I love the idea, and maybe that's it. Maybe they've figured out that who their target market is. But I look at it just going, I don't understand like how that fits into the
fantasy works very, very well. You can get lots of really flashy effects.
Yeah. Terry Gilliam will be a non-writing executive producer, so that means they're going to give him some money for the rights to it.
And finally, Terry Gilliam will have a movie that actually gets finished.
Pretty amazing movie, I have to say. And I guess somebody at Apple just really loved it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I can...
Hey, what else can we throw some money at? I got an idea. Let's do Time Bandits.
Actually, I like Brazil better. Somebody in the chat room, Robert Mike, says Brazil was better. I did like Brazil a lot. That was an amazing movie, but a little dystopian. So
you have the ability to. There are holes in the universe that allow you to travel through time. That means that you don't necessarily have to have a beginning, a middle, or an end. You can just basically keep jumping through holes and keep going through to other places. It seems like it's tailor made for this.
You're right. It's basically Stargate with a sailing ship.
Or what was it? What was
Quantum
the time
Leap.
traveler one that was in
Quantum Leap? Yeah, there've been a lot of them. The Time Tunnel. This is actually
I mean, like Quantum Leap. He leapt finally into Star Trek, right? And then at the very end of Star Trek, he leapt into NCIS. I think that's how that went.
All right, let's take a break, and your picks of the week are next, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue with MacBreak Weekly. Rene Ritchie, birthday boy. Is this your big 3-0, Rene?
It's the many anniversaries of
your 3-0. Happy birthday! What do you plan? Is it today? Is it actually today's the day?
Yeah, it is today. But I'm spending it with you guys and then with Apple earnings. So I'll celebrate on the weekend. No, there's almost nowhere I would rather see. Maybe like a deserted island, but there's very few places I'd rather be than.
We're about 20 minutes away from the earnings, so we wanted to get out of here before Rene had to start working on that. And as you said, Micah Sargent taking over Serenity Caldwell, he'll be transcribing. So that's one of the great things iMore does. I've always loved. You can read the notes of the analyst call directly after the fact, and of course, Rene's analysis of everything they said at imore.com. Andy Anatko is also here from Anatko.com, at Anatko on the Twitter, IHNATKO, and from the Pixel Corps. It's Alex Lindsay. We're going to get their picks of the week in a second, but I'm going to give you a pick right now. Every business ought to be using LastPass, period. We do. I'm sure you're aware of LastPass. It's the password vault. Keeps track of all your passwords, generates strong ones, makes sure your passwords are secure. It's the last password you'll have to remember, that one that unlocks the password vault. It is the right way to go for an individual, all the more important for the enterprise. In fact, we adopted LastPass here a few years ago for our business. I've been using it for more than a decade. Since it started, I was really pleased a few years ago when Steve Gitzman got to interview the founder and creator of LastPass, Joe Segrist. We talked to him on the show. Joe also showed Steve the code. Steve gave it his thumbs up, seal of approval. In fact, Steve, I know, uses LastPass. It's more than making it convenient. It's making it secure. And usually there's a trade-off between convenience and security. But I think once your employees start using LastPass, they'll embrace it because it's easy. It fills in the password form on websites, on your phone. It works everywhere you are. We really felt like because certain employees need the passwords for important things like our bank account and our servers, it's important that we keep it secure. LastPass lets you set more than 100 policies, including things like requiring two-factor, which we do, changing the password regularly if you want to do that. We do that because of employees coming and going. SSH keys can be stored there, software licenses, database logins, all your important business information. It's all stored there. And by the way, I get to use my personal LastPass and Enterprise. I log into Enterprise, and it knows my personal LastPass, so I have access to both vaults with one login. And I keep credit cards in there. I keep my driver's license, my Social Security, my passports. When I travel, it's nice to know that my phone has my passport, an image of my passport that I can use in case it gets lost to get a new one. But it's there securely. It's not something that's easy to access for anybody else. And, of course, when employees leave or they don't need access to an account, it's very easy to restrict their access. We have folders with different levels of access. You can even share a password without the employee even seeing it, knowing it, or able to change it, which is great. We make sure multi-factor authentication's in. You can use a hard key like Google found. By the way, 85,000 Googlers received YubiKeys a couple of years ago. It eliminated phishing attacks, so we do require two-factor. That's huge. LastPass has a password generator because you don't want your employees coming up with their own passwords because it'll be their dog's name and their birthday. Now we know Rene's, so, you know. And now employees can log into LastPass with their Microsoft Active Directory credentials. That makes it even easier. Now you just one password to rule them all. Of course, LastPass data is encrypted with trust no one encryption. LastPass can't see your passwords. No one can see them except you. They're decrypted at the device level only. For easy onboarding, password autofill, LastPass makes it easy for businesses to take control of passwords and reduce the threat of breach. There's LastPass Premium for you, your personal use. There's LastPass Families for your family, LastPass Teams for small groups of 50 or fewer, and the one we use, LastPass Enterprise. 10 years old this month. Congratulations to LastPass for its 10th anniversary. I've been using them just about as long. If you haven't, you better. And if you're using it but your business isn't, tell the boss. More than 13 million people trust LastPass. It's the #1 most preferred password manager. It's the one we use. It's the first app I install on any new device. LastPass.com/twit to find out more. LastPass.com/twit to find out more. Alex Lindsay always has something...
We use LastPass.
Of course you use
Enterprise.
LastPass. Yeah, of course you do.
It's the only way to go.
Well, and you need it because you meet people coming and going all the time.
Yep.
You have a lot of interns. You have a lot of...
Well, and we also work with a lot of clients, and I don't want to necessarily pass all those passwords around. So because it's not just the password, like, yeah, they may change the password, but if you start getting lots of passwords from a client, you start to get how they create passwords.
Right.
And what you want to do is not know that.
Yeah,
or not have other people know that. You don't want to start showing anything that can be figured out later. So.
That's why when I need a password, I use LastPass to generate it.
Yep. So my pick is The Economist for the iPhone.
That's expensive.
It is expensive. Well, I've been taking it easy on everybody, but I'm going to come back to this one because
it is good.
I don't read it ever. Like, so here's the funny thing is I don't read The Economist ever.
I remember traveling with you. That's the first thing you do. You go to the newsstand at the airport and you'd buy a copy of The Economist.
Yeah, no, I used to read it all the time. I don't read it anymore. I only listen to it. And here's what's so great about The Economist is that every every single article is read out loud.
Oh, wow.
So you basically hit download the audio, and this has been this way for a long time. I just realized I hadn't, but I listen to it all the time. And you can pick all your stories. I actually have a challenge where I try to listen to the whole magazine each week before the next one comes out. So, I think every magazine should do this. I mean, I think that this is just beyond it being a, the Economist being good and being able to listen to someone with a nice English accent tell you about the world. It doesn't get much better than that.
It really is. It's more than just a financial magazine. It's a great news magazine.
Oh yeah. You get a lot of things, and as long as you take all the news in Africa with a grain of salt because they're from England, you're okay. You kind of go, oh yeah, okay, those guys. So, but outside of that, it's pretty good. But I think that it is a great model for how everybody, all these magazines, if you want to stay relevant, making an audio version of what you do, or anybody that's doing something in print, making an audio version of anything that is longer than about 500 words. My whole thing is that after that, I'm like, oh, it's too many words. This needs to be audio.
I need your help because there's the Economist Classic. There's the Economist.
I think you just get the Economist.
And there's Economist Espresso, which is designed specifically for phones.
I have to admit, I use the Economist Classic because I bought it through iTunes and I can't figure out how to log in to the regular Economist. I've had it for so long. I've had it since it came out. And so I use the classic one, but I think if you got it new, you would just get the regular Economist. But they all have, the Economist and the Economist Classic both have the audio piece, and that's what really makes it work is the fact that you can have that each week you're going to get all these audio files. You can turn them on or turn them off. If you don't want to listen to all of them, you don't have to, but it is something that when you're driving or you're working, doing whatever, you can just have them playing in the background and just kind of absorb a lot of information.
But now I did subscribe because it's only $3 a month to the Espresso, but that does not have the thing that you like, which is the audio thing. It's really Espresso's designed for quick and fast mobile.
Yeah, I don't like reading on my phone. I don't like reading
It's only 8 stories total each day, so $3 a month is cheap, but you don't get the full Economist.
Yeah.
And you don't get the audio, so.
That's good. No, if I could get Foreign Affairs this way and Economist,
every magazine should do
Wired,
that.
I'd be pretty set.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's one of the great magazines. I still love magazines.
I love listening to them. I don't really like reading them anymore. You travel with me. I used to always buy the
stack of magazines,
and I'd read them in the thing. Yeah. And there's just something about it that I just. I think when it became digital, I started thinking, well, I should get them on my iPad. But once I put them on my iPad, I didn't read them, and then I just kind of expected. I've just found that I will read short things, and if they're not audio after a certain length, I'm like, oh, it's too many words.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's just I can't.
That's really interesting. Apple bought the magazine app that we like, but I don't. I'm trying to remember if Texture had the Economist. I don't think it does. There are a few magazines that just want to go their own way. They don't want to.
And I have Texture. It's not like there's
plenty of other stuff
noodle
there.
With things. If I hear about an article, I'll go into it, but I don't really just sit and browse the way I used to. I really like to just.
Somebody should do.
I just really like to listen.
A Texture audio version. Yes. Apple, if you want to hire me to help you out with that,
there you go.
Or Alex,
I'm ready.
We're ready to join the evil empire. Oh God, I just ruined my chances. Andy and Akko, your pick of the week.
More of a tip. A listener sent me an email and alerted me to a discussion on Apple support forums about MacBook Pro screens spontaneously breaking or something along those lines.
The new ones?
Going back to a couple of years, I need the modern design that has the flat keyboard. And so a lot of people are saying, oh, look, see right at the bottom of the screen, and this is just like spontaneously broke, and I see this crack. I didn't drop it. I didn't do anything like that. Now Apple won't fix it. And I thought it's worth reading because it's interesting. I don't think it's a defect. I think the problem is that if you compare the design of these current class MacBooks with their predecessors from 2015, you notice that the hinge for the screen is the pivot point for the hinge is right at the bottom of the glass, whereas the previous generations, the pivot point was about like a centimeter, like on an L shape out. So that means that if there is anything right at that hinge, like even if you're eating like a bagel and like a big seed or something gets in there, once you shut it, now you've got so much more force. crushing that edge of the screen. That I think that's what's happening. There have been a number of times where my keyboard's been a little bit dirty, and I closed the thing, and then I opened it up and thought, oh look, there's like a fragment of an aspirin that I crushed up. Okay, guess I should have cleaned that up a little bit more. I just don't think I think the problem is that there isn't as much leeway now for a potentially screen-ending injury, particularly if something gets worked into, again, the very, very bottom on that hinge. I don't think it's a defect. I certainly don't think it's a problem with the glass itself. I think that if it were a problem, we certainly would have heard. There would have been a bigger outcry well before now. It's just an indication that be very, very careful. Clean your keyboard. Be protective of that hinge. Maybe it's not a bad idea to have things in a slipcase. And the other thing worth mentioning is that this also affects mobile device screens. Sometimes people don't understand that if you drop your phone and it looks like nothing happened, and you got away with it. Maybe it didn't. Maybe you didn't get away with something. There can be like microfractures. That means that the next time that you drop it, you're definitely going to be losing the screen. So and sometimes you get sort of fracture that kind of migrates with continued use, like putting your phone in your pocket and out. So that can sometimes lead to a phone that looks like it's spontaneously shattered when actually you dropped it twice over the past year and a half. You got away with it. You forgot about it. And then the last time that you were in a hotel and you just sort of like tossed it 6 inches onto the nightstand, then the screen broke. No, it doesn't mean there's a manufacturing defect. That means that this phone will break after dropping it 6 inches. It means that your phone, you got your two free passes, and on the third one, that was it.
And temperature change can do that too.
Yeah.
To like if you've already stressed it the way you're talking about it, and then you go through something that's really cold back into something really hot, it may, it's not built for that anymore because it's broken somewhere. It's just not apparent.
It's not affecting performance. It's not affecting the screen.
Yeah.
But the damage is there. It's like it's like you think that if you skateboarded a lot in your teenage years and your college years, and you thought you got away with every single time you ditched onto concrete, and then you get to be 40 years old and now your knee just absolutely hurts every third day. No, you really did keep injuring your knee. It just took a while for it to actually develop into something that affects your ability to live on a third floor apartment.
That is why I bought Apple Care on this one. Actually, I bought it because of the keyboard, but now I'm happy that I have it because of the screen. So I don't usually buy Apple Care because I feel like it's self-insurance, and I don't mind self-insuring. But in this case,
I buy it all the time.
For the keyboard alone, I bought it, and maybe now I'm glad I got it for the screen. Rene, your pick of the week, birthday boy?
So my pick of the week, Ken Kocienda may not be a household name yet, but he was one of the first members of the Safari team. I think him and Don Melton were hired on the same day to build Apple, their first web browser. And he and Richard Williamson joined them soon thereafter, and they settled on Conqueror and KHTML and KJS, and the rest literally was history. And then after that, he worked on some other projects, and he eventually built the first keyboard for the first iPhone. And when you hear Apple sometimes get grumpy about how other people wound up on the same solutions as they did, when you realize the amount, like the months, the days, the hours, the minutes of agonizing work that went into producing what we all now just think are the normal and intuitive behaviors, you start to understand like the type of individuals that do this stuff and the process they go through. And that's what makes this book so interesting. It's available now for pre-order. I was lucky enough to get a review copy early, and I read it, and then I promptly read it again. Because there have been so many terrible books about Apple over the years, and this is probably the best one that I've ever read because it caters to my interest. It's from a design and engineering point of view, but he tries to distill down what allows Apple to year after year ship great products and great software. And regardless of how you feel about this bug or that bug, when you look at the state of software in a lot of consumer electronic devices, it's like smart TVs, for example, it's just not good. And he sort of distills it down. But one of the major theses is creative selection, that Apple has this culture of you build something, you demo it, you take the feedback, you make a better demo. You build it, you get the feedback, you make a better demo. Things that are bad ideas, no matter how precious they are thrown away, and you make a better version because back then, Henri Lamoureux and then Scott Forstall and then Steve Jobs were going to be the ones that you were demoing to. And it's got to be great. And just how everyone drove towards simplicity and intuitiveness and relentlessly sort of built these products. And even at the very beginning, when they were making Safari, Steve Jobs had one mission, and that was fast. It had to be fast. And that one word ended up defining their whole methodology, because no code check-in, no feature check-in could reduce the speed, not by one iota. And that sort of gives you a clarity of purpose, but also a way of getting to your destination. And he goes through making the keyboard, making Safari, the lessons he learned, the good and the bad, because he had some down moments as well. And it's a fascinating read from beginning to end.
I'm putting it on my Audible pre-order, because there is an Audible or will be an Audible version. Comes out September 4th. Creative Selection. Ken Kocienda, former principal engineer of iPhone software at Apple. Well, that's good. I'm definitely pre-ordering that one. That looks really, really good.
And he's so good at explaining. Like, I'm not a coder, so like he explains, if you're writing lines of code, get the mustard from the refrigerator versus get the mustard from the store are both the same length, but are considerably different amounts of work.
Right.
And he has a ton of examples about like how to optimize code, and sometimes optimizing it early is the worst thing you can do. So learning when you need to optimize, just the whole thing was really good.
Very nice. Good recommendation. Yeah. Always looking for something new to listen to.
Yeah.
And if you say that's the best book about Apple, he was there 15 years, so he went through a lot of stuff.
Started making Safari, and I'm not sure if he was on Apple Watch or what he was on at the end. Maybe he was back at UIKit. I'm not sure, but he retired.
He's not there now, so he can talk.
Yeah.
He can speak.
Yes.
Okay, good. Good to know. Although it sounds like he's got still got some connections back inside the mothership.
Well, I mean, he still lives there, so they'll see him at the coffee shop if he does bad.
Right. Rene, you are awesome. I hope you have a wonderful birthday, and we thank you for being here on your birthday. Go get going. You got a couple of minutes
before Earning Palooza.
Before Earning Palooza, imore.com and imore.com/Vector. I bet you're going to get Ken on Vector at some point.
It might be in the works. Might
be. I look forward to listening to that. Rene is, of course, joined as always by Andy Anako of formerly of the Chicago Sun-Times, now of Anako.com.
And I'll be on the WGBH Boston Public Radio again on Thursday from about 1 to 1:30. I'm
going to start calling you WGBH's Andy Anako. Is that okay?
I am an official paid contributor, so yes, you can do that.
All right. WGBH's Andy Anako. I like saying that. That has a nice ring to it. And from the Pixel Corps, Alex Lindsay. Alex is best to follow on Twitter, AlexLindsay. That's where he lets you know what he's up to. Anything coming up?
No, not really. I'm going to be
okay.
I have. I'm going to be. We're going to be putting some more stuff on sale as we get rid of some more old stuff. But it's still good stuff. In good condition. So
I bought a camera from him, and I couldn't be happier. I got quite a deal.
Yeah. So we're getting pretty aggressive because we're trying to make more space.
They're blowing it out to the bare walls. They got to move.
Well, we have this huge space in San Rafael. We want to use it for things, and we just need that. We were like, okay, we're not using this stuff, so we got to get rid of it. So we're going to be moving a bunch of stuff.
Smart.
So if you follow me on Twitter, I'll post a link where you can get on the mailing list, and we'll be putting more stuff out over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you all for being here. We do MacBreak Weekly on Tuesdays. Right after iOS Today, around 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. You can watch live at twit.tv/live. If you do that, join us in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. If you are able to visit Petaluma, California, up here in Northern California, about an hour north of San Francisco, we'd love to have you visit us in studio. We're not always open, though, so email tickets at twit.tv because I'm going to be gone for a while and stuff like that. Two Costa Ricans visiting today. Nick from New Jersey, ex of Costa Rica, and Domingo still in Costa Rica. Nice to have you guys in studio, and we love having our studio audience visit us. So please, if you get a chance, come by. And of course, if you can't visit and you can't listen live, there's always the on-demand versions of everything we do at our website, twit.tv. For MacBreak Weekly, it's twit.tv/mbw. Or, even easier, subscribe in your favorite podcast application, and you'll get every episode the minute it's available, audio or video. Just search for MacBreak Weekly. Thanks for being here. Now it's time to get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.